Have you ever laid in bed at night, staring at the ceiling, and felt that sudden, sharp pang of anxiety? Not about the future, but about the past, about all the time you've squandered, all the tomorrows that never came. There's a quote from the Stoic philosopher Seneca that captures this perfectly. Let us prepare our minds as if we'd come to the very end of life. It's a heavy thought, I know, but that feeling you just imagined, that's what we're tackling today. Mordecai. That quiet dread in the face of our own finite existence. It's a universal human experience. We try to push it away, distract ourselves with endless scrolling, with busy work, with the constant promise of one day. But what if I told you that leaning into that feeling, embracing the very thought of the end, is the actual secret to a life of profound meaning, focus, and vibrant joy? Today, we're diving into an ancient philosophy that feels more relevant now than ever. Memento Mori, the art of dying every day. So what is this thing? Memento Mori. The Latin phrase literally means, remember you will die. And yeah, on the surface, that sounds incredibly morbid, right? Like something a Gothic poet would whisper in a graveyard. For centuries, it has been associated with a kind of grim, religious piety. Just think of those skulls on monks' desks or the haunting dance macabre art from the late Middle Ages, with skeletons leading kings, popes, and peasants to their doom. But here's the twist most people miss. For the Stoic philosophers of ancient Greece and Rome, we're talking about people like Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man on earth, or Epictetus, a man born into slavery. Memento Mori wasn't about fear. It wasn't about appeasing some angry god. It was a practical, psychological tool. It was a compass, a filter, a mechanism to strip away all the trivial, unimportant noise of daily life and force you to see what truly matters. The reason this ancient idea feels so radical, so necessary right now, is because it's the perfect cure for a modern disease, the illusion of infinite time. Our entire world is basically a conspiracy to make you forget you're going to die. We're sold anti-aging creams, productivity hacks to squeeze more into our limitless days, and we scroll through social media feeds that are just curated, timeless highlight reels of other people's lives, making our own feel perpetually unfinished. Think about it. We all live in a culture of someday. You'll write that novel. Someday. You'll learn that instrument. Someday. You'll finally tell them you love them. Someday. We hoard these somedays like a dragon hoarding gold, convinced our treasure trove of time is bottomless. We operate under the silent assumption that we have 1,000 more mornings to wake up, 1,000 more evenings to make things right. The Stoics would call this the single most dangerous delusion. Seneca put it perfectly. You live as if you were destined to live forever. No thought of your frailty ever enters your head. You squander time as if you drew from a full and abundant supply. Tell me that doesn't sound like it was written this morning, about someone doom-scrolling on TikTok for 2 hours before bed. And here's the paradox. This illusion of infinite time doesn't make us happy. It makes us anxious and paralyzed. When you believe you have all the time in the world, there's no real incentive to act, I know. The sheer weight of infinite possibility crushes the urgency of the present moment. Every choice feels both meaningless, because there are 1,000,000 more to come, and impossibly heavy, because it has to be the perfect one. So, how do we break the spell? This brings us to the first practical tool of Memento Mori, the daily death rehearsal. It sounds intense, I know, but it's simpler and more powerful than you think. At the end of every single day, Seneca would ask himself, what ailment of yours have you cured today? What failing have you resisted? Where can you show improvement? Here's the mental shift. Treat each day as a complete life in miniature. The morning is its birth. The evening is its death. And when you lie down to sleep, you're not just ending a Tuesday. You're reviewing that entire single-day life. This isn't about beating yourself up. It's about accountability. It's about closing the ledger on that day, owning its wins and its losses, and preparing to be born again tomorrow, if you're lucky enough to get one. Let's make this real. Imagine Sarah. Stressful job. She gets home. She's exhausted. She's irritable. Her young son runs up to show her a drawing, but she just brushes him off with a quick, "That's nice, honey. Mommy's busy." Later that night, doing her daily death rehearsal, she reviews the day's moments. And that one with her son, it stings. In that reflection, she realizes that in her day life, she traded a priceless moment of connection for a cheap moment of distraction. The thought, what if that was the last time, isn't some morbid fantasy. It's a powerful reframing tool. It makes her resolve, with absolute clarity, that if she gets it tomorrow, she will do better. She'll put the phone down. She'll really look at the drawing. This one practice recalibrates your priorities every single day. It stops the slow drift into a life you didn't choose. You can't waste 10 years in a job you hate if every single night you have to look that day life in the eye and admit it was spent in quiet misery. The gentle, constant reminder of the end forces you to take the present seriously. Procrastination becomes a form of self-betrayal. Presence becomes an act of profound self-respect. But what about the big fears? The really scary stuff. Losing someone you love, a devastating illness, total financial ruin. The Stoics had an advanced practice for this too. Premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. And this is where it gets really counterintuitive. The idea is to actively, deliberately, and vividly imagine the worst-case scenarios. You don't just think, losing my job would be bad. No, but you sit down and you visualize in it. You see the meeting with your boss. You feel that knot in your stomach as you pack up your desk. You play out the difficult conversation with your partner. You walk through the practical steps you would have to take next. Okay, I know what you're thinking. This sounds like a recipe for a full-blown anxiety attack, right? Why on earth would you do this to yourself? But here's the psychological masterstroke. When you confront your fears in the controlled environment of your mind, you rob them of their power. Fear thrives in the shadows, in the vague what-ifs. When you drag it into the light, two things happen. First, you realize you would survive. It would be horrible, it would be hard, but you would find a way. You would adapt. You are so much more resilient than you give yourself credit for. This builds a deep, unshakable inner confidence that doesn't depend on things going well. You've already died 1,000 little deaths in your mind, and you've always come back. Second, and this is even more important, it makes you intensely, overwhelmingly grateful for what you have, right now. After you've spent 10 minutes vividly imagining life without your partner, the simple act of them walking into the room feels like a heart-stopping gift. After you've premeditated a serious illness, the simple, unconscious act of taking a deep, clean breath of air feels like an absolute miracle. This practice is the ultimate hack for reversing the hedonic treadmill, that natural tendency we have to take good things for granted. By periodically imagining the loss of these things, you get to re-experience the joy of receiving them for the first time, over and over. Your job, your health, your relationships, they stop being just your boring baseline and become the precious, temporary treasures they truly are. And all of this leads to the ultimate purpose of Memento Mori. It's not about remembering to die. It's about remembering to alive. The Romans had a companion phrase, memento vivere, ... Remember to live. They are two sides of the same coin. The awareness of death isn't the point. It's the catalyst. It's the fuel for a life well lived. So how does this work, day to day? Memento Mori becomes your ultimate decision-making filter. When you're faced with a choice, you ask a simple question inspired by Marcus Aurelius. Is this essential? Is scrolling this feed for another hour essential? Is winning this petty online argument essential? Is staying in this pointless meeting essential? The thought of your limited time makes the answer brutally, beautifully clear. It also gives you incredible courage. The fear of asking for that raise, of starting that business, of telling someone how you really feel. These fears feel huge in our daily lives. But when you hold them up next to the ultimate reality of your own non-existence, they shrink down to their proper size. What's the worst that can happen? They say no. You fail. How does that even compare to the absolute certainty of the end? Suddenly, the risk of you not trying becomes far more terrifying than the risk of failing. Just think of Steve Jobs' famous Stanford speech. He said, "Remembering that I'll be dead soon is the most important tool I've ever encountered to help me make the big choices in life. Because almost everything, all external expectations, all pride, all fear of embarrassment or failure, these things just fall away in the face of death, leaving only what is truly important." He used this thought not to be morbid, but to innovate, build, to refuse to settle for anything less than great. This principle fundamentally changes your relationship with right now. If today is all you really have, and in a very real sense it is, you're far less likely to waste it stewing in anger about yesterday or paralyzed with anxiety about tomorrow. Your attention, your most precious resource, is pulled back to the here and now. The taste of your coffee, the warmth of the sun, the sound of a friend's laughter. These aren't just little moments. They are everything. The art of dying every day, then, is truly the art of being born every morning. It's the understanding that the clock is ticking, not to create a frantic panic, but to inspire a deliberate, purposeful pace. It's the deep realization that a life's value doesn't come from its length, but from its depth. A short life lived with purpose, love, and courage is infinitely more meaningful than a long life lived in a distracted, sleepwalking haze. So in the end, this dark philosophy is actually the ultimate source of light. It's a tool for liberation, from anxiety, from procrastination, from the fear of what other people think. It's about looking the finite nature of your life right in the eye and saying, "Because of you, I will not waste today." So let's bring it all together. Memento Mori, remember you will die, isn't some morbid obsession. It's a Stoic secret weapon for a life of purpose. It's the antidote to the modern disease of infinite time that leaves us feeling anxious and stuck. We've talked about the practical tools, the daily death rehearsal to bring clarity and focus to your days, and the premeditation of evils to build bulletproof resilience and gratitude. And we've seen how it all points to one thing: memento viva, using the hard truth of death as your ultimate motivation to truly, authentically live. If this idea resonates with you, if you feel that pull to trade distraction for depth, hit that subscribe button. In our next video, we'll explore the perfect companion to Memento Mori, the Stoic concept of amor fati, the art of not just accepting, but loving everything that happens to you. But for now, I'll leave you with a question to carry with you. A question for your own daily death rehearsal tonight. What is one thing you would do differently tomorrow if you knew, truly knew, it might be your last? Let me know in the comments below.